Hi, welcome to Theology Therapist. I'm Hannah, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about Catholic guilt. So, if you've grown up Catholic, you know what I'm talking about. Maybe like eating meat on Good Friday and knowing that your parents or somebody around you could just tell by like the look on your face that you ate meat. Or maybe attending a non-Catholic wedding or funeral and feeling really jealous about the brevity and the levity of it, and then immediately feeling bad about feeling jealous about that. Or always feeling like you need to apologize even when you're not really sure what you've done wrong, but surely there's something that you should apologize for, right? So Catholic guilt is the sense that you are always wrong and you always have something to ask forgiveness for. In religious circles or in Catholic circles, it's passed off as a moral conscience or a moral compass, signaling to you whenever your morals have been offended. It's also encouraged that you would thank God after, like, sort of recognizing that feeling for the guilt that you have, because it's led you to an opportunity to make reconciliation with God in this sort of theology, in this framework. So this sort of breaks down when everything is a moral violation. So if everything is a moral violation, then as the saying goes, right, then like nothing is. Because if everything is bad all the time, then there's no sense of like good or bad or right or wrong. There's just bad all the time. The other thing about Catholic guilt is that it sort of lines up with the theology in Catholicism of original sin. So original sin says that we are like born as babies, we are born sinful, kind of simplistically. So I wouldn't actually want to debate theology here about whether that is like right or wrong. My point isn't to say whether original sin is right or wrong theologically, but simply to address the impact that something like Catholic guilt can have on mental health. From a psychological standpoint, this is particularly harmful because it creates the belief that you were born bad. And the idea that you were born bad can be really damaging, right? Like that's something that is really hard for us to get over. That would be like something ontological. That would be something really directly about our being as a person, about who we are, and that would impact our feeling of purpose and worthfulness and value, right? And so I don't know that any of us have ever met like a newborn baby or a month-old baby and thought, aside from like how it impacts, you know, the parent's ability to sleep, I don't know that but even then, I don't know that we've ever thought like this baby is essentially, ontologically, or essentially bad, right? And so this theological framework does have the potential to create a really big impact. So if you are living with something like Catholic guilt, you may have the tendency to apologize all the time. Maybe the belief that you are bad, or that you, in any moment, you are doing something wrong. And this can be really hard to overcome on your own. Part of this thing about perpetual guilt is that we don't learn to trust our intuition. We've talked about that with religious trauma, is that high control religious environments, which Catholicism, depending on maybe the group, may or may not fall into that, but high control religious groups, they squash self-development. And so a person doesn't learn to trust their own intuition because the leader of the group is the sort of ultimate authority. Maybe not necessarily in a different way, but for a different reason. Catholic guilt can do something similarly, because what you're taught is that you're always sort of doing something wrong, if you will, or that in any moment you could be doing something wrong, or there's always the need to make amends between a person and God for original sin, for the sort of sinfulness of a broken world. And And that like sort of working to like deserve divine love or a place in this world, or just at home in your own body, in your own self. It's a really powerful message that says that you're not enough. There are so many Catholics in the world. In Massachusetts, like a huge organization, you know, and I've heard, especially like as a therapist, but even just kind of being out as a human in the world, I've heard so many people kind of talk about like, well, this is just my Catholic guilt, right? I think that speaks to the impact that this has at really a baseline level, a level sort of maybe that goes undetected, like of how religion, religious upbringings, how theology impacts our worldview and our self-identity. If you feel like you are suffering from Catholic guilt and you need help sorting that out, I really encourage you to contact a therapist in your local area. If you are curious about whether the Catholic guilt that you have been living with has led to any sort of trauma, I'd recommend that you check out our quiz for religious trauma. The link is in the bio, and that will lead you to some resources after that. As always, remember to subscribe, click that red button before you go to make sure you stay up to date on all weekly output. It was so great to see you here this week. I hope that you are well and sending you well wishes.